So this story was sent to me by someone through Reddit. She didn't want to share her full name, and after hearing what happened to her, I completely understand why. She said this took place in late 2023 in Portland, Oregon. She'd just moved to the city for a new job, a fresh start, away from a messy breakup and an even messier hometown. Things were finally looking up for her. She had a nice apartment, a stable job at a design firm, and for once, some peace. But of course, peace doesn't last long in stories like this. She told me she downloaded Tinder, not because she was desperate, but because she felt lonely. New city, new people. And that's where she met him. The guy seemed normal at first, charming, polite, even a little nerdy in a harmless way. But what started as a casual date turned into a nightmare she still hasn't fully recovered from. This is her story. You know that feeling when you're lying in bed late at night, lights off, and the silence feels a little too quiet? That's how I felt when I first matched with him. His name was Alex. At least that's what the profile said. I was just scrolling through Tinder, half out of boredom and half out of curiosity. His profile wasn't anything special. No shirtless gym selfies, no cliché bios, just a decent-looking guy with glasses, standing next to a dog in one photo and holding a cup of coffee in another. The bio read, designer, introvert, good at cooking, bad at texting. Let's talk? I don't know why, but something about it felt disarming. I swiped right. We matched instantly. His first message came just minutes later. Hey, didn't think we'd match. You have great taste in books, by the way. He was referencing a photo I had, me holding a worn copy of House of Leaves. I smiled. Most guys didn't know what that book was, let alone recognize it. We started chatting. His tone was warm, self-deprecating, just enough humor to keep me hooked. He said he worked freelance from home, which is why he was always online. I didn't think much of it. In fact, I was kind of relieved. Someone with a flexible schedule meant we could meet up easily. After about 4 days of texting, he suggested coffee, a safe, daylight setting. We met at a cozy little cafe in the Alberta Arts District. I remember being nervous. He looked exactly like his photos, maybe even better in person. He wore a maroon sweater, had these calm, thoughtful eyes. We talked for over an hour, books, music, travel. I told him about my job, and he told me about some of the logos and branding gigs he'd done for local shops. He even pulled up some designs on his phone. It was one of those dates that doesn't feel like a date. No pressure, no weird vibes, just easy. At the end, we hugged. He didn't try to kiss me, didn't push for more, just smiled and said, "I'd love to see you again." And I said, "Yes." I know what you're thinking. Why didn't I just leave? Why didn't I just trust my gut and get out of there the second things felt off? Believe me, I've asked myself the same question 1,000 times. And the truth is, I don't have a good answer. Maybe I didn't want to seem rude. Maybe I was too caught up in the moment. Or maybe, deep down, I was too curious for my own good. We stepped inside his apartment. The first thing that hit me was the smell. It was faint, like something rotten had been there days ago, and had only just started to fade. He must have seen my nose twitch, because he immediately said, "Sorry about the smell. Had a fridge issue. It's all good now." He smiled that same weird smile, too wide, too practiced. The apartment itself was bare, not in a minimalist, clean kind of way. More like someone had just moved in or was about to move out. No pictures on the walls, no books or decorations, just the essentials: a couch, a table, a TV. And even the TV was one of those older models. Not a single thing that showed personality. Except for one thing, A locked door at the end of the hall. I didn't notice it at first, but something about it stood out. Maybe it was the thick padlock. Maybe it was the fact that the door looked newer than the rest of the apartment, almost like it had been replaced recently, reinforced. He saw me glance at it and quickly stepped between me and the hallway. "That's just a storage room," he said too quickly. "It's a mess. Don't even ask." I wasn't going to, but now I couldn't stop thinking about it. We sat on the couch, and he offered me a drink. I politely declined. That seemed to annoy him. He poured himself something brown from an unlabeled bottle. I tried to make small talk, asked him what he did for work, if he always lived in the city. Normal stuff. His answers were vague. "I do a bit of this, a bit of that," he said. "Mostly freelance. I like to stay flexible." The way he said flexible sent a chill down my spine. Then he asked me something that completely caught me off guard. "Do you live alone?" I hesitated. Something in his tone made the question feel less like casual conversation and more like an evaluation. "I have roommates," I lied. He smiled again, but this time it didn't reach his eyes. There was a long pause. He just sat there, watching me, not in a flirty way, in a calculated, predatory way, like he was trying to figure out how much I'd scream if he lunged at me. I reached for my bag. "Actually, I just remembered. I have to get up early tomorrow. I should probably go." He didn't move. "You sure?" he said, voice low. "You only just got here." "Yeah, I forgot I have this thing. Early morning. Sorry." Still, he didn't move. That's when I saw it. Behind him, on the small table near the hallway, was something that made my blood run cold. A phone. Not his, not mine. A cracked iPhone with a pop socket that looked eerily familiar. My heart skipped. I knew that phone because it belonged to someone else, someone who had gone missing last month, someone I'd actually seen on the news. A girl named Kara, 23, last seen leaving for a Tinder date. Never came back. It was her phone. I tried to stay calm, forced a smile. "I'll just grab an Uber," I said, pretending like nothing was wrong. Still, he sat there, watching. Then he stood up slowly and said, "I'll walk you out." And that's when I realized the door didn't have a knob on the inside. I hadn't noticed it before. The entrance door, the one we came through, only had a keyhole on the outside. From the inside, it was smooth, flat. My stomach twisted. "Bathroom?" I asked, buying time. He pointed. "Right there." I ducked inside and locked the door behind me, pulling my phone out with trembling hands. No signal. Of course there was no damn signal. I checked the window. Too small. I couldn't fit. I opened the medicine cabinet. Empty. Not even a toothbrush. Just a pair of latex gloves and a roll of duct tape. That's when I knew for sure I wasn't going to leave this place unless I fought my way out. Or unless I died. I couldn't sleep that night. Even though I was back in my apartment, curled up under a familiar comforter, with my roommate, Sierra, sleeping peacefully in the room next to mine, something inside me refused to settle. My body felt like a rubber band stretched taut, ready to snap at the slightest noise. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw his grin. Not the charming smile I thought I saw over drinks, but the twisted thing it had become when he stood outside my window. I must have dozed off around 3:30 a.m., because the next thing I remember was waking up to a vibrating sound. Buzz, buzz, buzz. I groggily reached for my phone. It was nearly 5 a.m., and I had over a dozen missed calls, all from a number not saved in my contacts. And then there were the texts. "You locked the door. Why would you do that? I thought we had something real. I watched you sleep." My breath hitched. I sat bolt upright in bed, phone trembling in my hand. "I love how you curl your toes when you're scared." I didn't know what to do. I wanted to scream, to wake Sierra, but what would I even say? That a Tinder date I barely knew had somehow followed me home and was watching me through the goddamn windows. I blocked the number immediately. Then I turned off my phone. I didn't want to see what came next. I didn't tell Sierra right away. I felt stupid, embarrassed even, like I'd somehow brought this on myself by going out with him in the first place. So I said nothing. I pretended like everything was fine, but it wasn't. The next few days were a blur of paranoia. I started noticing things, little things. Someone had moved my garbage bins, just slightly, from where I kept them. A faint boot print appeared outside my back door, even though it hadn't rained in days. The porch light would flicker every now and then. I kept the blinds closed at all hours. I even bought a can of pepper spray and started keeping a kitchen knife under my pillow. Then one night, everything escalated. It was a Thursday. Sierra had gone out for drinks with friends from work, and I was home alone. I was watching Netflix, trying to unwind, when I heard the front doorknob jiggle, just slightly. I froze. My heart started hammering so loud, I was sure whoever was outside could hear it through the walls. Another jiggle, then a knock. Software. 3 taps. Knock, knock, knock. I tiptoed to the door and peered through the peephole. No one was there. I waited, unmoving, breath shallow, for nearly 10 minutes before I finally backed away. I was about to call Sierra when something made me glance at the window in the hallway. There he was, standing just on the edge of the property, not close enough to touch the house, but close enough for me to see his face under the amber hue of the street lamp. And he was smiling, that awful, toothy smile. I backed away from the window, heart about to explode from my chest. I ran to my room and locked the door, then finally called Sierra. She picked up on the 3rd ring, voice slurred slightly from drinking. "Sierra, he's outside. He's here." "What? Who?" "That guy from Tinder. The one I told you about. He's watching the house." There was a pause, then her voice sharpened. "Call the cops." I hung up and did just that. The dispatcher was calm and efficient. Asked me to stay on the line while they dispatched an officer. It felt like hours before I saw red and blue lights flash outside the window. But when the cops checked, he was gone. Again. No trace, no footprints this time. Nothing. I gave them his name, or at least the name he gave me on Tinder. But when they ran it, nothing came up. No ID, no license, no history of residence. It was like he didn't exist. They said they'd file a report, but warned me there wasn't much they could do unless he actually tried to break in. That night, Sierra stayed up with me, both of us sleeping on the couch with knives nearby, like we were 2 scared kids. The next morning, I deleted Tinder. Hell, I deleted every dating app on my phone, but it didn't stop. New texts came in, this time from a different number. This one was worse. "They'll never find me. I don't live anywhere. I belong where the shadows are." You smiled at me. That means something. He started leaving notes on my doorstep. Creepy, scrawled handwriting on scraps of paper. "I see you brushing your hair in the morning. Red looks good on you. You looked sad today. I wanted to hug you." And then one night I came home and found a photo tucked under my windshield wiper. It was me. Me, sleeping. The photo had clearly been taken from inside my bedroom. I almost vomited right there in the parking lot. The cops came again. Sierra moved back in full time, refusing to let me stay alone. We installed cameras, extra locks, motion detectors, but the fear didn't go away because he was still out there, somewhere, watching, and it was only going to get worse. I barely slept that night. I kept the lights on, sat with my back to the wall, and stared at the door until morning. Every creak of the old wood, Every flicker of the hallway light outside my door made my heart pound. The air felt heavy, oppressive, like something was still in the apartment with me. I wanted to believe I was just traumatized, that maybe it was some elaborate prank or drug-induced episode, but I couldn't deny the reality of what I saw. The photos, the voice, the way Matt's face changed. None of that was in my head, and I knew if I stayed, I might not get another chance to leave. At 6 a.m. sharp, I grabbed my phone, charger, keys, and backpack. I stuffed the printed photo of me and the woman into the front pocket as evidence, though I wasn't sure who I could ever show it to. Cops. What would I even say? Hi, the guy I met on Tinder is some kind of demonic entity impersonating a person. Can you investigate? Number, I just needed to get the hell out of there. I opened the door slowly, expecting to see Matt standing outside, grinning that empty grin, but the hallway was empty. I walked quietly, quickly, down the stairs. I didn't take the elevator, I didn't trust it. I kept my eyes on every corner, every shadow, ready to bolt at the first sound of movement. The streets of Chicago were quiet that early in the morning. It should have brought me comfort, but it didn't. The silence just made it easier to hear the sound of something behind me. Light footsteps, bare feet, slapping lightly against concrete. I didn't look back. I forced myself not to. I took a cab to my friend Sarah's place in Lincoln Park. She opened the door groggy and confused, asking what was going on. I told her everything, or most of it anyway. She thought I was having a mental breakdown. I could see it in her eyes. But she let me in, let me crash on her couch, and that was enough for now. I didn't leave for 2 days. During that time, I avoided my phone completely. I couldn't stand the idea of seeing a new message, or worse, seeing him again on my screen. But on the 3rd day, curiosity got the better of me. I turned it back on. As soon as it booted up, notifications flooded the screen. Missed calls, voicemails, messages, some from unknown numbers, others from Matt, or rather, Matt. The texts weren't begging for forgiveness or asking where I went. They were simple. One said, "You shouldn't have left." Another, "You belong here." And the last one, sent at 3:33 a.m. the previous night, "We're not done." I played the voicemail. It was static at first, then heavy breathing, followed by a whisper. Software, gentle, feminine. "Come back, come home." I deleted everything, blocked every number. Then I did something I never thought I'd do. I walked into a church on Halsted Street, sat in a pew and cried like a child. I didn't know if I believed in anything, but I needed something to protect me, something bigger than me, because whatever I had invited into my life was not human. That night, I finally opened the printed photo again, the one I had taken from Matt's drawer, and I noticed something new. Behind the smiling woman, me, was a dark figure, barely visible, a silhouette in the glass reflection of a storefront behind us. No face, no eyes, just a tall, black shape, almost like smoke. It hadn't been there the first time I looked, I swear, or maybe I just hadn't noticed, but now I couldn't unsee it. It was watching us, watching me, and I knew then I had been marked, not by Matt, by whatever he really was. I don't know how long I stood in that hallway, staring at that door. Maybe it was seconds, maybe minutes, but the way it creaked open on its own, slowly, like something was inviting me in, set off every primal alarm in my brain. I didn't want to go in, but something about that moment. It felt like the house was watching me. Like if I turned my back to leave, it would grab me from behind. I took a slow step inside. The smell hit me first. Stale mold, something rotting, and an undercurrent of something sickly sweet that made my stomach twist. The hallway inside was impossibly narrow, like the walls were pressing in. There were scratches along the plaster, deep grooves that looked almost like claw marks. It looked like someone, or something, had tried to dig their way out. "Hello?" I whispered, my voice barely a breath. No response. A single bare bulb flickered overhead. It wasn't there when I passed by this door earlier. I was sure of it. But now it was swaying slightly, like someone had just walked underneath it. My heartbeat thundered in my ears as I walked further in. The living room was cluttered with furniture covered in white sheets, yellowed with age. The television was on. Static fuzz and low, almost inaudible voices whispering through the white noise. A glass of water sat on the coffee table, half full. Condensation still clung to the outside of the glass. Someone had just been here. The sense of being watched only grew stronger. I turned in a slow circle, scanning the room, trying to find an explanation. That's when I saw it. A shadow just beyond the archway to what I assumed was the kitchen. It was tall, unmoving, but definitely human-shaped. I froze. "David?" I called out. My voice cracked. The shadow didn't move. Then slowly, it retreated into the kitchen, not walking but gliding, like its feet didn't touch the ground. I don't know what possessed me to follow. Maybe I wanted answers. Maybe I was too deep in the nightmare to think straight. But I stepped toward the kitchen, feeling the temperature drop with every footfall. The kitchen was empty, but not really. The lights were off, and the window at the far end was boarded shut from the inside. Dirty dishes were piled in the sink, and the floor was slick with something thick and dark. I thought it was water at first. Then I saw it glisten, red, sticky, almost black in the dim light. Blood. It trailed from the fridge to the door, leading to the basement. My body screamed to leave. Every instinct told me to turn around and run, but I felt pulled to the door like gravity had shifted. I didn't want to open it. I had no reason to, but my hand was already on the knob, and before I knew it, I was descending the stairs into the darkness. Each step creaked louder than the last. The smell got worse, a choking stench of death and rot. I covered my mouth and nose with my sleeve, blinking against the darkness. Then the light flicked on. It wasn't me. I didn't touch a switch. The basement was wrong. It didn't look like a normal basement. It was far too deep, the stairs continuing longer than they should have. The walls were lined with shelves of old CRT televisions, dozens of them, all playing different scenes. I recognized some. My walk to David's house earlier that night, me waiting outside the bar, me sleeping in my own bed. Someone had been watching me for days, number longer. I stepped closer to one of the screens. It showed me in my apartment, talking on the phone with my sister from 3 nights ago. The angle was from inside my closet. I remember that call. I was laughing, rambling about how weird Tinder dates could be. I didn't laugh now. My hands were shaking as I turned to the next screen. It showed me in David's bathroom, brushing my teeth. The camera was behind the mirror. Then another, me in David's bedroom, standing near the bed, from the perspective of something under it. Suddenly, all the screens flickered at once, then changed to the same image. Me, standing in the basement right now, looking directly into the camera. I stumbled back. A voice whispered behind me, "We've been waiting." I spun around. Nothing. The air felt thick, like it was pressing against me, like I was underwater. I turned and ran up the stairs, taking them 2 at a time. But the faster I climbed, the longer the staircase felt. It wasn't ending. The top never got closer. I stopped and turned back. The basement was gone. Now it was a hallway, endless, dimly lit, doors lining both sides, some open, some closed, all of them identical. I picked one and yanked it open. Inside was my bedroom, my actual bedroom. I stepped through and found myself back in David's hallway. I tried the door to the outside, locked. I tried the windows, barred. No matter what I did, the house folded back into itself, reshaping, reorganizing, like it was trapping me in a loop. No two rooms looked the same twice. I even found a room with a staircase leading into a pit of teeth. Not symbols, actual teeth, like a gaping mouth carved into the foundation of the house. Then I heard the humming again, that same tune from earlier, but warped, slowed, distorted, like a record melting on a hot plate. It was coming from a room I hadn't noticed before. A small, narrow door tucked behind a curtain. It looked like it wasn't meant to be found. I pushed it open. Inside was David, or what looked like him. He was sitting cross-legged on the floor, eyes wide open, unblinking. His skin was pale, stretched tight over his bones, lips cracked and bleeding. He didn't look at me. He just kept whispering, "I brought her. I brought her. I brought her." There was something behind him, a shape, too large for the room. It loomed in the shadows, shifting unnaturally, limbs too long, head tilted at a wrong angle. It leaned closer, and I saw its face, or rather the suggestion of a face, like someone tried to draw a person from memory and failed, blurred, melting. It opened its mouth, and my world went black. I woke up in the street, right outside the house. My phone was dead, my keys were gone, my clothes were soaked in something I didn't want to identify. I walked straight home, barefoot, trembling, replaying everything in my head. I wanted to believe it was a dream, a psychotic break, anything. But when I opened my apartment door and turned on the light, I saw it, on my bed, a single piece of paper. It read, "We're not done yet." And on the back, a photograph of me from inside the house, from a room I don't remember ever entering, but I was smiling. So I did what I always did when things stopped making sense. I started rationalizing. Maybe I was tired. Maybe I thought I saw blood, but it was just rust. Maybe the scratches weren't scratches at all, just scuffed wallpaper. I mean, come on, this guy had cooked for me. He'd been kind, attentive, charming even. Surely I was just overthinking everything. But the thing is, your body doesn't lie. My stomach stayed in knots. My palms were still damp with sweat, and my legs twitched under the table like they were ready to bolt. I remember glancing over at Liam, who was pouring us both glasses of red wine. His hand trembled slightly, not enough to be obvious, but enough for me to notice. That's when I asked, "So, what do you do again?" He smiled, but it didn't touch his eyes. "I told you, I work in tech, security systems." Right, I replied, watching the red liquid swirl in the glass. "What kind of security systems?" He hesitated, just a beat too long. "Mostly private clients, people who want discretion." That pause didn't sit right. Why would anyone hesitate about their job unless they were hiding something? And why would someone working in security systems have a blood-stained hallway and a lock on the inside of the guest room door? Still, I didn't say anything. I just nodded and took a tiny sip of the wine, barely letting it touch my lips. It tasted off. Not bad, just strange. Thick, metallic. My body recoiled before I could help it. I quickly set the glass down. "You don't like it?" Liam asked, smiling. "No, it's fine. I think I had too much water earlier." He tilted his head. "That's not wine, you know. It's homemade mulled sangria, a special recipe." "Oh?" I tried to sound neutral, but my throat was tightening. "Where'd you learn to make it?" He leaned closer, resting his elbows on the table. "From a friend." I nodded. Then he added, almost as an afterthought, "He doesn't make it anymore. He moved away." The words hung there. There was something wrong with the way he said it. It was too casual, too flat. My heart picked up speed again. I suddenly needed to get out. I couldn't explain why. My instincts were just screaming at me. I looked around the room again, this time more carefully. That's when I saw it. Behind him, just past the kitchen doorway, there was a door, slightly ajar. A dim yellow light leaked out from the crack. Inside was what looked like a basement, stairs leading down. A dull thumping sound echoed up, like something rhythmic, soft at first, but steady. Thump, thump, thump. "What's down there?" I asked, trying to keep my tone casual. Liam turned his head slowly. "The basement. Is that where your office is?" "No," he said, and then smiled wider than before. "That's where I keep things." He stood up then. "Want to see it?" I shook my head. "Actually, I think I should head out. It's getting late and His voice cut me off, sharper now. "Come on, just take a look. It won't take long." He took a step toward me. My chair scraped loudly against the floor as I stood up. "No, really, I should go. I forgot I have an early meeting tomorrow." "You haven't even finished your drink," he said, motioning to the glass. "I'm good," I said quickly, grabbing my coat. My heart was thundering in my chest now. I was fighting the urge to run. I moved toward the door, trying not to look like I was panicking, but every part of me was screaming. Just before I reached the front door, Liam spoke again, quietly. "Don't you want to see what happened to the last girl who said no?" My hand froze on the doorknob. "What did you say?" I whispered. He didn't respond, just stood there, arms by his sides, staring at me. I threw open the door and bolted into the hallway. As I ran, I heard his footsteps slam behind me, quick, heavy, unhinged. But by some miracle, I made it to the elevator before he could catch up. I slammed the button over and over, praying it would come faster. The doors opened, and I jumped inside, hitting the ground floor button repeatedly. He stopped just short of the elevator, staring, watching. "You'll be back," he said, as the doors closed between us. I kept hearing it, a slow, steady creaking sound, like weight shifting on old floorboards. It wasn't rhythmic, like footsteps. It was watchful, as though someone was moving just enough to stay hidden. The walls were thin in that apartment, and I'd grown used to the nighttime groans of settling wood, or the hum of someone else's bad reality TV. But this was different. It felt sentient, intentional. I held my breath, straining my ears in the pitch-black room. Nothing, just silence, until it creaked again. Closer. I shot upright in bed, pulse racing, heart hammering against my ribs like it wanted out. My phone was still in my hand, now cold and slick with sweat. I flicked on the flashlight and shined it toward the hallway. Empty. Still, something in me refused to believe it. I got up, creeping toward the door in bare feet. My body trembled as I reached for the knob, unsure if I was walking toward something or away from it. The hallway stretched out ahead, dim, narrow, shadowed by the dying glow of a street lamp beyond the frosted window. The front door stood closed, deadbolt still in place, but the air had changed. It was thicker, heavy, like walking through molasses or a room filled with someone's breath. Then I noticed it, a faint smear of something dark on the wall beside the kitchen entrance. I froze. My light caught it just right. Crimson, wet, dragged by a hand. My stomach flipped. I hadn't hurt myself. I hadn't moved from my room. And Tyler had left, hadn't he? I followed the streak, barely able to will my feet forward. The smudge disappeared into the kitchen, and that's when I heard the faint shuffle of something moving. Under the sink. I backed away instantly, turning on every light switch I passed, as if they were wards against whatever the hell was happening. My phone buzzed violently in my palm. Unknown number. I almost dropped it. I shouldn't have answered. God, I wish I hadn't. But I did. There was no voice on the other end, just breathing, deep, crackling, like lungs full of liquid. I said hello 4 times before I finally hung up, my fingers trembling so bad I could barely swipe. I wanted to leave, run out barefoot into the street if I had to. Then the phone rang again. Unknown number. I hit decline. Then it rang again and again. Each time I declined it, it came back, almost immediately, like someone was watching my screen, laughing. Finally, I answered and screamed, "What do you want?" The breathing stopped. There was silence, followed by the faintest sound of whispering. Except it wasn't a voice. It was multiple voices, layered, some fast, some slow, some chanting, some crying, some hissing. Then a woman's voice cut through them all, sharp, cold, and horribly familiar. "Don't you remember me, Claire?" The call ended. I was shaking uncontrollably. That voice, I had heard it before, long ago. I just didn't know where. I stood in my apartment like a cornered animal, heart pounding, blood rushing in my ears. Then the lights flickered, just once, then again, and then all at once, they went out. My phone light was the only thing illuminating the apartment now, casting jagged shadows along the walls. My brain screamed at me to leave, run, call the cops, anything. But something else took over, a sick, frozen fear that kept me rooted to the floor. Then I saw the cabinet under the sink shift. The door nudged open just a crack. That was enough. I bolted for the front door, fumbling with the locks in the dark, slapping at the chain, the bolt, the knob. My breathing came in ragged gasps as I finally yanked it open and ran into the hallway, not even stopping to close it behind me. I ran barefoot down the hallway, down the stairs, and out onto the street. I didn't even care that it was past 2 a.m. I didn't care who saw me in my pajamas, wild-eyed and hyperventilating. I just needed to get away. I sat across the street under a flickering lamppost, clutching my phone, barely able to think. I called 911, not knowing what to even say. A man broke in. I lied. It felt safer than saying something was in there. Cops arrived within 10 minutes. I didn't go back inside. I watched as 2 officers walked into the building, listened to their radios crackle while I sat in the back seat of the patrol car. They came back out after 20 minutes. No man, no sign of forced entry, no blood, no cabinet open. They said the only unusual thing was that every single cabinet and drawer in the kitchen was wide open. I told them I hadn't done that. They exchanged a glance. One of them scribbled something down. The other asked if I'd taken anything that might cause hallucinations. I told them no. Then I asked if they had checked the crawl space in the back closet. They hadn't. They went back inside again. This time, they came out faster. One officer walked to the car and said, "You're going to want to get a hotel for the night." I asked why. He looked at his partner and said, "We found something in the crawl space. We've called in a detective." I pressed, but he wouldn't elaborate. I never went back in that apartment, not even to pack. A few days later, I had my brother and a few friends go grab my things. They FaceTimed me from the hallway, refusing to go in alone. One of them said the place felt wrong, and he wasn't even the superstitious type. I stayed at a hotel for a week before finding a sublet up north. I blocked Tyler on everything, deleted the app, changed my number. But here's the part that haunts me. One night, about 3 weeks later, I was scrolling Facebook on my laptop. A sponsored article popped up in my feed. Unidentified woman found in crawl space of Lincoln Park apartment. Police suspect body had been there for over a year. I clicked it. I shouldn't have. The article said a body had been discovered during a police investigation. Female, mid-20s, decomposed beyond recognition. No ID, no missing persons match, no sign of forced entry or struggle, just found in the crawl space of my old apartment. I threw up in the hotel bathroom and cried for hours. The voice I heard on the phone, the whispering, that smell, that sense that I had been watched. It hadn't been paranoia. Someone or something had been in there with me, maybe longer than I even realized. And the worst part? The article ended with a quote from one of the responding officers. If she hadn't called that night, we probably wouldn't have checked that crawl space at all. I don't know how long I was out. When I came to, I was no longer in that dark corridor, or even in the house as far as I could tell. I was somewhere else entirely, a place that didn't feel real. I couldn't see much at first. Everything around me was blurred, shadows moving like smoke, curling along the edges of a room that didn't seem to have walls. There was a low buzzing sound, almost like fluorescent lights, but deeper, more alive. My arms were numb and my head throbbed as though something had been drilled into my skull. I tried to scream, but no sound came out. And then I saw him, Tyler, or what looked like him. He stood just a few feet away, his face half lit by the strange gray-blue ambiance around us. But something was different. His skin looked paler, thinner. His eyes, which I remember being warm and brown, were now empty, hollow, almost black, like twin pits that swallowed the light around them. "You shouldn't have come here," he said. His voice wasn't human anymore. It sounded distorted, like a bad radio signal. It scraped against my ears, vibrating somewhere deep inside my chest, like it was bypassing sound and going straight to my nerves. What is this? Where am I?" I managed to choke out. "You wanted the truth," he replied, stepping closer. As he did, the room, or void, or whatever it was, shifted. Shadows peeled away like old wallpaper, revealing glimpses of something underneath. Hospital lights, a gurney, a woman screaming, a figure in scrubs pushing a needle into someone's neck. And then blood. So much blood. "This isn't real," I said, shaking my head. "This can't be real. It's more real than your little apartment, your phone, your friends, your dates," he snarled. "This is what lies beneath it all. This is where we come from, where we feed." I tried to back away, but my body wouldn't respond. I looked down and saw that my feet were submerged in some kind of black sludge, thick and oily. It clung to my skin like a second layer, pulling at me, like it wanted to drag me deeper. "What are you?" I whispered. He leaned in close, his breath colder than death itself. "We are the reflection in your screen when the video ends, the shape in your mirror at night, the silence between your heartbeats. We are always there. You just forget to look." And then he smiled, a wide, unnatural smile that split his face in ways no human anatomy should allow. Suddenly I was falling. The void opened beneath me and I plunged through it like water, spinning, tumbling, screaming. Faces blurred past me. Some I recognized, some I didn't. My old roommate, my high school gym teacher, my dead grandmother, all of them twisted in pain or rage or fear, their mouths open in soundless wails. And then I slammed into something solid, cold tile. I gasped, coughing up the same black sludge that had swallowed my feet. I was back in the bathroom of that house, the one with the broken mirror, the one where I'd seen my face change. Except now, there were words scrawled across the wall in something thick and dark. "You matched with death." I scrambled up, slipping on the wet floor, my legs shaking. I didn't care where I was anymore. I just wanted out. I bolted down the hallway, back into the living room. The house was no longer empty. The walls throbbed like living tissue. The floorboards pulsed beneath my feet, and from every corner, from every dark crevice, eyes watched me. I could feel them, hundreds of them, eyes that blinked in unison, eyes that whispered in clicks and hisses, mocking my panic. I grabbed my phone from the floor where I'd dropped it earlier. The screen was shattered, but it lit up just enough for me to see a single notification. "Tyler, you up?" I threw the phone across the room. The front door was gone. In its place was a hallway that hadn't been there before, narrow with flickering lights overhead. I didn't care. I ran. The hallway stretched longer the further I went, the lights flickering faster, and behind me, I could hear footsteps, bare feet slapping against wood. They were getting closer. I turned a corner and slammed straight into a wall, except it wasn't a wall. It was a mirror. My reflection stared back at me, but it wasn't doing what I was doing. It stood still while I trembled, it smiled while I cried, and then it moved forward. Not me. It. Like it was stepping through. I screamed, and the world went dark again. When I opened my eyes this time, I was in a hospital bed, IVs in both arms, machines beeping softly. A nurse stood nearby, her back to me, writing something on a clipboard. "Well, where am I?" I croaked. She turned slowly. It was the girl from the mirror, and she smiled. I don't even remember running. One moment I was on the floor, staring up at the crawling thing in the suit, and the next I was bursting through the hallway door, barefoot, bleeding and shrieking like a wounded animal. I couldn't think straight. I just knew I had to get out of that place. I slammed into walls, stumbled over my own legs, and didn't dare look back. Every second felt like it was right behind me, inches from pulling me down again. I barreled through the stairwell door and hurled myself down the steps. I skinned my hands, grabbing the rail, almost missed a step, and went tumbling head over heels. But I made it. I didn't care about pain. I didn't care that I was screaming, crying, or hyperventilating. I just kept moving, down floor after floor, until I hit the ground level. The lobby was dark. No doorman, no light, no life. Like the place had been abandoned for decades. Even the air felt stale, heavy with mold and something metallic. I didn't stop. I didn't scream for help. I ran past the front desk, flung open the door, and burst into the night air. Cold, wet, raining. The street was empty. No cars, no people. Just the distant buzz of streetlights and the wind howling between the buildings. It should have felt like freedom, but it didn't. It felt like I was still inside the nightmare, like the world itself had shifted, and I couldn't trust what I was seeing anymore. I ran down the sidewalk, trying to orient myself. I didn't know where my phone was. I had no shoes, no coat, and barely any memory of the last hour. My mind was unraveling. Every sound made me flinch. Every passing shadow became a potential threat. After what felt like an eternity, I saw a gas station at the corner. The lights were on. A man was inside behind the counter. I sprinted there, slammed the glass door open, and collapsed on the tile floor. He jumped, dropping his phone. "Holy shit, are you okay?" I couldn't speak. I just looked up at him, shaking. Blood smeared down my legs and arms, my clothes torn. I must have looked like a creature from a horror movie. He called 911. I curled up near the refrigerators, holding my knees, rocking, eyes locked on the door in case it followed me. The paramedics came first, then the police. They asked 1,000 questions, but I could barely answer any of them. The story sounded insane when I tried to explain it. A Tinder date, a weird apartment, a hallucination, a monster. But I wasn't insane. I showed them the blood, the bruises. They took my vitals. They took photos. They found my phone, still somehow in the apartment lobby, cracked but working. They drove me to a hospital. The nurse who took my blood pressure didn't speak much, but I caught her glance at the officer and shake her head slightly, like I was just another drugged-out girl who got in too deep. But later, when I was alone in the hospital bed, a female officer came in quietly and sat next to me. She looked tired, like she'd seen too much. "Listen," she said, "you're not the first." My breath caught. She handed me a folder. Inside were photos of other girls, different faces, same eyes, fear, trauma. One of them, bruised, pale, wide-eyed, looked too much like me. "We've had 5 disappearances linked to that building in the last 2 years," she said. "Nothing sticks. No evidence, no suspects, but they always match with someone online, always end up at that same damn building." "Then why hasn't it been shut down?" I asked, voice hoarse. She looked away. "Because every time we go there, it's empty. Apartment 103 doesn't exist on the leasing record. It's not on the floor plans. Half the time the hallway isn't even there. One guy swore the building only had 4 floors. I shook my head slowly. "But I was in there." "I believe you," she said, "but no one else will." That night, I was discharged into the care of my sister. She picked me up with tears in her eyes and held me the whole ride home. I slept with the lights on for weeks. The nightmares were constant. The thing in the suit, the silent woman, the hallway, the cracks. But the worst part, I couldn't delete the app. Every time I tried, it reappeared. A new match, a new name, a new face, and every single one of them lived in apartment 103. I don't know how much longer I was unconscious, but when I came to, the world was upside down. Literally, my legs were tied at the ankles and fastened to what looked like rusted meat hooks, suspended from the ceiling of what could only be described as a basement or underground chamber. I was swaying, slowly, nauseatingly. Blood rushed to my head and the pressure behind my eyes made it hard to focus. The air was thick with mildew and the stench of rot. It smelled like death, like something old, spoiled, and long forgotten. Dim yellow bulbs buzzed above me, casting flickering shadows on the blood-stained stone walls. My mouth was gagged again, but the taste of copper from earlier still lingered, mixed now with bile rising from my stomach. Then I heard it, that slow, measured creaking of boots on the stairs, one step at a time, deliberate, as if savoring every moment. He was coming, Daniel. But this version of Daniel wasn't the charming guy from the Tinder profile or the awkward date who laughed at bad jokes. This Daniel was someone else, something else. His eyes, when they met mine, were black. Not just dark, black, the kind of black that swallowed light. His face was no longer warm or familiar. It was twisted into a wide grin that didn't reach his eyes. He wore an apron that had once been white, now soaked and stiff with dried blood. He came closer, dragging something metal behind him. The screech it made across the concrete floor set my teeth on edge. It was a tray on wheels, surgical tools, saws, scalpels, clamps, devices I couldn't name. He spoke, not to me, but in a low mumble to himself. Words I didn't understand. Some sounded like gibberish, others like chanting. He ran a gloved hand over my cheek, tilting his head like he was studying me. "You're still awake," he said, sounding disappointed. "I wanted you to dream first. They always scream louder when they wake up halfway." I thrashed, cried into the gag, and he just chuckled. "Oh, don't worry, I'm not going to kill you," he said. "You're not for that." Then he turned to the tray and picked up something long and thin. A scalpel. He held it up like an artist admiring a brush. "You're for them." That's when I noticed the shadows on the wall weren't matching our movements. They were moving independently. Shapes flitted behind the stone bricks, like rats under skin. I heard whispers, soft and desperate. in languages I couldn't understand but instinctively feared. Something was on the other side, or maybe inside. Daniel raised the scalpel, but then the lights above flickered violently. There was a high-pitched ringing in my ears, and suddenly he froze. His head jerked upward as if he heard something that scared him. He dropped the scalpel. "No," he muttered. "Not now. Not yet." The shadows grew, swelled. One of them reached from the wall like a hand made of smoke and bone. Daniel screamed, not in anger, in fear. He backed away, stumbling as more limbs reached out, grabbing him, pulling him backward toward the wall. I watched in paralyzed horror as he was dragged into the bricks. His screams were swallowed by the stone. Silence followed. Then the room began to shake. Chains clattered. The hooks groaned. The lights shattered one by one until only darkness remained. But in that darkness I felt something else. A presence, not evil exactly, but ancient, watching. It untied the gag from my mouth, the hook from my legs, gently, like unseen hands guiding me. I collapsed to the floor, gasping, sobbing. A voice, not out loud but in my mind, whispered, "Run, and never come back." I did. I ran through a tunnel that opened behind the stone wall, crawled through filth, rats, and God knows what. I emerged from a sewer outlet a few blocks away. I don't know how long I was gone, but the city was waking up. Morning sun kissed the tops of buildings. The world continued, as if nothing had happened. I reported it to the police, showed them everything. But when they went to the house, it was gone. The address didn't exist. No listing, no records. The lot was empty, just a fenced-in plot of dirt and garbage. No Daniel, no basement, no proof. And yet sometimes, I still see his profile on Tinder. Not as Daniel, but as someone else. A different name, a different face, but the same eyes. I don't swipe anymore. And if you ever match with someone who seems too perfect, too charming, or something about their profile feels off, please, don't go on that date.